Hello everyone, and welcome back to AniMonolith's Tensei Slime light novel summary series. Picking up from the previous events, the Empire holds an important meeting the following morning. To avoid attracting attention with her striking Northern European appearance, Velgrynd is forced to alter her looks. She changes her hair and eyes to black, and her skin to a soft yellow tone with a faint red tint. She still doesn't look fully Japanese, but at least she no longer stands out. She also dons a military uniform identical to Gensei's. With this disguise, Velgrynd can attend the Imperial meeting as one of the Emperor's personal guards. Since very few members of the personal guard are publicly known, her identity will remain safely concealed. The Imperial Army is composed of three major branches: the Navy, the Army, and the Royal Guard. On this particular day, Gensei, the commander of the Royal Guard, attended the Imperial Council along with the ministers of the Navy and Army, as well as the Chief of Staff. Akira observed the meeting from a separate room. When Velgrynd entered the hall, an arrogant officer immediately shouted at her, claiming that a woman had no place in such a sacred headquarters. Akira only sighed. He had already predicted this reaction. In an instant too fast for anyone to notice, Velgrynd grabbed the officer by the chest and shoved a pistol into his mouth. She smiled thinly as she spoke. Whether you're a man or a woman doesn't matter. What matters in modern warfare is the ability to analyze situations calmly and make rational decisions. Someone who screams like that doesn't deserve to stand here. Her sudden action threw the entire room into chaos. Bringing a gun to the meeting was a violation of military law, and the man she was threatening turned out to be the Chief of Staff. Velgrynd mocked the room for panicking over a mere toy, claiming that such a fragile mentality was unworthy of Imperial soldiers. Then she pushed the Chief of Staff aside and pulled the trigger. A stream of water shot out, soaking his crotch. "It seems you've wet yourself. Why don't you go home and change?" Humiliated and trembling, the Chief of Staff tried to speak, but the terrifying look in Velgrynd's eyes silenced him instantly. He realized that any wrong move would get him killed. He apologized and quietly returned to his seat. In just a moment, Velgrynd had shattered the pride of the Empire's high-ranking officers. To her, Rudra is the only one that truly matters. Velgrynd refuses to let incompetence serve him. The officer had been hot-tempered and narrow-minded, deserving of a punishment, though not severe enough to be killed. She smugly thought of herself as becoming kinder, though in truth, it was only because she was happy to be with Rudra. Had she been in a worse mood, the Chief of Staff wouldn't have survived. Her long journey searching for Rudra's scattered souls had not always been smooth. At times, she couldn't find his next reincarnation and had to wait years or decades for him to be reborn. A torment for her. That was why every moment spent by his side was precious. When the hall finally calmed down, Velgrynd introduced herself casually under a false name. Riwo. The name was a random combination of the character for dragon, from True Dragon, and the character for Phoenix from the Divine Beast that controlled the flame in this world. Yet this immediately caused another uproar. Many believed using a dragon-related name was an insult to the Emperor, and even suspected she might be connected to him. Gensei regretted not considering her alias beforehand. From afar, Akira sighed again. But deep down, he found the situation amusing, since it was the first time in his life he had been pushed around like this. With no other choice, Akira entered the hall. Wearing a light smile, he declared that Velgrynd was under his own authority. The room fell silent at once. If the Emperor himself had spoken, no one could question it. And so, in this world, Velgrynd became known as Riwo. The next morning, Akira Sakura opens an emergency meeting at Imperial headquarters. A naval intelligence officer reports alarming news. The enemy coalition fleet has docked at Atlantis after capturing the entire Imperial fleet. No Imperial ships escaped, and many of their most advanced vessels have fallen into enemy hands. The officers are shaken, frustrated, and close to arguing with each other. Their fleet, once the strongest in the world, is gone. Even worse, eyewitnesses claim that Imperial officers were seen steering the captured ships themselves, with only a few enemy soldiers aboard and no signs of battle. This makes it look as if Imperial soldiers willingly defected. No one believes that. Minamoto points out that such betrayal would disgrace the men who died fighting. The only explanation is that the demons influenced or controlled the captured soldiers. Velgrynd supports this idea. She explains that demons, or phantoms, can possess humans to survive in this world. During possession, the demons slowly assimilate their host, gaining strength over time. Because the process is slow and incomplete, their comrades are likely still alive and can still be saved. The officers want to mount a rescue operation, but that's impossible. The Empire has lost too many ships. Even gathering every remaining vessel would only form one small fleet, leaving the homeland defenseless. Then an unspoken fear finally comes out. Could someone in the room already be possessed? Tension erupts between Navy and Army until Akira stops them. Velgrynd reassures everyone that none of the attendees are possessed. She would detect it immediately. She explains that incomplete possession leaves traces that the Imperial City's protective barrier can reveal. She also describes the demons' hierarchy. The beings they've encountered so far are merely the lowest soldier rank. Once fully assimilated, even these low-ranked phantoms would reach heavenly-class strength, an overwhelming level that shocks the entire council. Velgrynd, however, treats this as manageable and claims Tensei could defeat one easily. Stronger phantoms, like commander-class ones, are more dangerous, but still not unbeatable. Tensei said, "But against two of them, even Kondu lost. I don't want you to get your hopes up." "You shouldn't be so weak. Kondu stuck to his beliefs until the end, you know." But Velgrynd scolds him for doubting himself. Remembering Kondo's resolve, Tensei regains his confidence. Velgrynd casually undercuts the moment again. "Right. Well, if you're feeling weak, I'm here, so there's no way you can lose." Now that the strength of the enemy was finally understood, the Imperial Congress shifted its attention to deciding what to do next. Velgrynd's presence guaranteed the Emperor's safety, so the officers could focus on strategy instead of panicking. Even though they were shaken, they weren't fools. They listened carefully to her explanations and tried to make sense of the situation. The first priority was to monitor the captured fleet. Velgrynd explained that demons, which she called phantoms, needed time to fully merge with a human body. In a world full of demonic energy, the process might take only a week, but in this world it would take at least 2 months. That meant their captured soldiers might still be saved. The officers then tried predicting the enemy's next move. They assumed that the enemy fleet would need about a month at Atlantis to repair and resupply, but Velgrynd quickly corrected them. The Azalea and Chinese fleets were already operational, meaning the enemy could launch much sooner, possibly within 2 weeks. With weather magic letting them travel at full speed, the Empire couldn't rely on natural delays. At this point, the officers began to understand Velgrynd's personality. Although her tone was arrogant, she answered questions directly, gave practical advice, and never bothered to hide the truth. As intimidating as she was, she clearly wasn't an enemy. With her guidance, a rough strategy started forming. Some officers suggested intercepting the enemy on the mainland, but that would mean abandoning their captured comrades. Instead, they proposed sending a strike force to attack the enemy leaders before the fleet could move. Tensei, Minamoto, and others immediately volunteered, confident their elite troops would be enough. But Velgrynd shut that idea down instantly. She told them their determination was admirable, but the plan was suicidal. The enemy wasn't just strong, they were beyond what a single nation could handle. The first man to understand what she meant was the Chief of Staff, surprisingly enough. He realized they couldn't rely only on the Empire. They needed help from other nations. Minamoto supported the idea. If only the Empire sent elite troops, the mission would fail, so other nations would also need to send their elites. Slowly, the room began to accept the uncomfortable truth that the crisis was global, not national. But that brought up another major problem. Diplomacy would be nearly impossible as long as the Imperial military remained out of control. No country would agree to a sudden ceasefire, especially during an active war. Public opinion would resist it, and suspicious nations might try to take advantage of the chaos. Even if world leaders understood the danger, cooperation wasn't guaranteed. Velgrynd dismissed their doubts without hesitation. If they gave up now, the Empire, and eventually the world, would simply fall. She declared she would protect the Emperor and the capital herself, but the rest of the world had to be convinced. Realizing they had no other choice, the officers finally steeled themselves. Even if negotiation failed, they had to try. Even if the world didn't believe them, they had to reach out. And even if the mission brought their own destruction, it was better than doing nothing. Inspired, though also pushed by fear, they began preparing for the Empire's final stand, hoping that action might come before disaster. And that's all the developments in today's video. Thank you for listening, goodbye, and see you again.